My husband, 29-year-old male, and I, 24-year-old female, have been married now for 4 years. I was 19 when we got married, and my husband was 25. We got married after a few months of knowing each other, which is not the issue of our relationship. Our first 2 years of marriage were great. We were both extremely happy and genuinely in love. Things started going downhill after I had our daughter. I had bad postpartum depression and was pretty much mentally checked out or drained. During this time, I stopped wanting to have intimacy with my husband. Fast forward almost 3 years later, current time. My husband just got back from deployment. Before he left for his 9-month deployment, he was gone 2 times, once for a month and the other for 2 months. So essentially, he has been gone for a year. Before he left, he seemed checked out. He would stay late at work, and when he was home, he would constantly be on the phone with his work buddies or playing video games. During this time, we really lost our connection. When he deployed, I finally started going out and making friends for the first time in my adult life. I started going to bars and getting drinks with friends on weekends. It's nice to feel like a normal 24-year-old since my whole adult life I have only ever felt like a wife and mom. From 19 to 22, I felt like I lost myself, and once he left, I finally had time to focus on me and figure out who I am. He came home about a month ago, and I have never been so unhappy in our marriage. The first night he was home, he suggested we go out with his friends to the bar. While we were out, he got upset with me because at one point I couldn't find him. So instead of searching high and low or standing alone, I decided to make friends with a few girls I had met in the bathroom earlier that night. When I finally found him, he wouldn't even look at me or acknowledge me. I got upset and walked outside because I wasn't trying to cry at a bar. He followed me outside and started saying, "I didn't know where you were. Seems like you didn't even care you couldn't find me. You are my responsibility, so I need to know where you are." I got triggered at his responsibility comment and told him that I'm not his frick child. I'm his wife, who is an adult and responsible for myself. The next few days after that, he would make passive-aggressive comments about how I'm not his responsibility. Now, every time I want to go to the bathroom with friends, he starts acting like a wounded puppy. For example, this past Friday, one of my girlfriends invited me out for a girls' night. I double-checked with him to make sure that 1, he had nothing planned for us, and 2, he didn't care if I went. He said to go and have fun. Hours prior to my girls' night, he was acting passive-aggressive, asking me questions like, "Why do you even like the bar? The bar is for single people." Or, "I can see your priorities are the bar and your friends," implying our family isn't a priority. 2 minutes after my friend picked me up, I got a call from him, pissed he can't see my location. I turned it off the day before because I noticed during the week while I was at work, he was constantly checking it, and when I would go to lunch, he would call to see where I was and who I was with. I started to feel like he was testing me. I told him that I'm not his child and he shouldn't be monitoring my location, especially 2 minutes after I left the house. He claims he was checking for safety reasons. But really, I hadn't even made it out of our neighborhood. I feel like if I say I am going somewhere, he should trust my word and not have to ensure I'm going pinpoint where I say I am going. I got home late, 3 a.m., because that's how late my friends, aka my ride, wanted to stay, and I was the last person she dropped off since I lived the closest to her. When I got in bed, he was next to me, and when I woke up, he was on the couch. And from the moment I woke up, I felt like I was being punished. He barely looked or talked to me. Then we went out to lunch, and he started to pick a fight about my priorities and how bars are single people activities, and was talking aggressively and raising his voice to the point I had to tell him he won't speak to me like that. During this argument, he brought up divorce multiple times. I told him no one is holding him hostage, and he doesn't have to stay. He claimed he is not leaving his home, which is crazy because it should be our home. When we got home from lunch, he apologized, basically saying he loves me and wants to be with me for the rest of my life. He does this shoot every time, especially when he feels like I am done with him, and now he's acting like nothing happened and everything is fine. He's acting like I'm being a jerk for not accepting his apology or going along with his everything's fine act. We have had a marriage counseling session scheduled for weeks now. I'm at the point where I don't even want to go. He's going to make it seem like our marriage is failing because I'm a party girl who doesn't prioritize our family. I need opinions. Thanks to whoever read this whole shoot show. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. After reading this post, as a grandmother, I am wondering if you have a job outside of being a mother and having responsibilities at home. Where does your baby stay and with whom while you're doing all of this bar hopping and stuff? Who is minding the child? Does your husband spend any time with the baby? Comment 2. Everyone sucks here, SH. So your husband has been away for a long time and you don't seem to want to be around him at all. He is being immature handling it. To be fair though, his wife wants to go out until 3 a.m. rather than spend time with her husband who was away for months. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. I really appreciated the support and advice. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, and I'm back to vent and maybe get some more of that great advice. So, remember how I mentioned that my husband and I had a marriage counseling session scheduled? Well, we went, and it was a disaster. He spent the entire time painting me as this wild, irresponsible wife who's out every night, leaving him to be the responsible one. He conveniently left out the part where he's been absent for most of our daughter's life due to his deployments and late work hours. But here's the juicy injustice. After the session, I found out that he's been telling his family and our mutual friends a twisted version of our issues, making me out to be the bad guy. He's been playing the victim, saying how he's struggling to reconnect with his wife, who's apparently lost in her newfound social life. I was furious when I heard about this because it's not just our private business anymore. He's dragging other people into it and making me look like the villain. The confrontation was inevitable. I confronted him about it, and he didn't even deny it. He said he needed support because he felt like I wasn't there for him. I couldn't believe it. After all the times I stood by him through his deployments and everything, this is how he repays me? But wait, it gets worse. Last Friday, I went out with my friends again, and he promised he wouldn't make a scene about it. I should have known better. I came home to find him sitting in the dark, waiting for me. He accused me of cheating, saying he had proof because a guy friend had dropped me off. That guy friend was just giving me a lift because my usual ride had to leave early. Nothing more, but my husband wouldn't listen. We had a huge fight, and in the heat of the moment, he said he wished he'd never come back from deployment. That hurt more than anything else he said before. It felt like he was saying he wished he'd never come back to me and our daughter. The next day, he acted like nothing happened. He was all sweet and apologetic, but I couldn't shake off what he'd said. It's like he has these two sides to him, and I never know which one I'm going to get. And here's the kicker. I found out he's been taking extra shifts at work, not because we needed the money, but because he's been avoiding coming home. He admitted it when I pressed him about why he's always at work. He said he didn't know how to deal with me and my new lifestyle, so he figured it was easier to just stay away. I'm at a loss here. I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's like we're living two separate lives under the same roof, and every attempt to fix things just ends up in more fights and misunderstandings. I'm trying to hold on for our daughter's sake, but I'm not sure how much more of this I can take. It's like he's trying to push me away, and then when he realizes he might actually lose me, he pulls me back in with apologies and promises to change. I'm just so tired of this cycle. I don't even know what to do anymore. I thought marriage counseling would help, but it seems to have made things worse. I'm starting to wonder if this is just how it's going to be from now on. Bought son a dirt bike and told husband no sharing, but he ignores me and friend's kid wrecks it, so I demand they pay for damages. And oh boy, the tables turn when friend steps up. My son, 13 years old, has been asking for a dirt bike for easily 3 years. And this year, I was finally able to afford one. It was delivered yesterday morning. I didn't tell my son, so it was a surprise. It cost me almost $2,000. I told my husband point blank that no one was to touch my son's dirt bike. I made this point clear because his buddy lives next door and has 6 boys, ages range from 7 to 16. He said he completely agreed and didn't want anyone to touch it either. I ordered it 2 months ago, so that's when we had the discussion. So my son gets home, and my husband and I give him his dirt bike. The kid was so incredibly happy that he cried. He immediately started riding. I go indoors to start dinner and get the dishes done. I'm indoors for roughly 45 minutes when my son comes in, slamming doors, crying, etc. I ask what's going on, and he tells me that my husband's friend's 10-year-old crashed the dirt bike, ripped off the front tire, and bent the handlebar back, then slams the door. I follow him into the bedroom and get him relatively calmed down enough for him to tell me that my husband told him, "This shoot happens sometimes, you live and learn, some stuff gets broken, it's not a big deal." And it was him who told my son to share the dirt bike. I immediately threw my shoes on and go downstairs in full mama bear mode, admittedly. I walk up to my husband and his friend, who are standing by the bike, and ask him who's paying to cover the cost to fix the bike. His friend doesn't say anything, and my husband tells me, "It'll have to wait. No one can afford it right now." I lost it. I told him that he's the irresponsible one who went against our agreement, and he shouldn't have told my son to share his bike, and that other kid had no business touching my son's belongings to begin with. Neither of you contributed a dime toward the cost, so it's pretty audacious of you to make decisions about it. He said he forgot our agreement and didn't think it was a big deal, and that my son should have just said no. My son told me that he said he didn't want to. At some point, I hear crying behind me, and I turn, and the 10-year-old was standing there crying. I comforted the kid, saying it wasn't his fault, and that it was the adult's fault for thinking he was big enough to ride it. He calmed down, but my husband and his buddy are calling me a crazy person. ETA. The kid was fine, by the way. He tried to hit a jump, chickened out, and bailed on the bike after revving it at full throttle, so the bike slammed off a tree. He's not injured. I did not realize the kid was standing there. If I had paid more attention, I probably would have noticed, but I didn't see him anywhere in the vicinity when I started going off. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Tell them they will see a fucking psycho for real if the bike is not replaced. Have your husband tally up what he can sell of his stuff to replace the bike. Poor kid wanted it for 3 years, and daddy let his friend's kid wreck it in 1 hour. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Accidents happen, but the friend's dad should pay for it. You spend $2,000 on a bike, and it was ruined in under an hour. I'd be pissed too. Is your husband always like this, though? It seems he has no respect or remorse towards you and your son. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. I never expected so much support and advice. It's been a chaotic couple of weeks, and a lot has happened since I last updated you all. After the whole dirt bike fiasco, things were tense at home. My husband knew he messed up, but his pride was making it hard for him to admit it. I was still fuming because that bike was more than just a toy. It was a symbol of hard work and saving, a promise I made to my son. A few days after the incident, my husband's friend came over to apologize. He admitted that he should have supervised his kids better and offered to pay for the repairs. I was surprised, considering he initially stayed silent when I asked who would cover the costs. It turns out, after I comforted his son, he realized the gravity of the situation and felt guilty about it. My husband was quiet during this exchange, and I could tell he was wrestling with his own guilt. Later that night, he sat down with me and our son, apologizing to both of us. He admitted he was wrong for undermining our agreement and for not standing up for our son's wishes. It was a big step for him, and I could see it wasn't easy. The next day, my husband took the bike to a local mechanic. He had to dip into his own savings, but he managed to get the bike fixed. When he brought it back, my son's face lit up like it was Christmas morning. The joy in his eyes was something I'll never forget. My husband told him that from now on, his word was his bond, and he wouldn't go back on it again. Meanwhile, my son and the neighbor's kid actually became friends through this ordeal. It turns out the neighbor's kid felt terrible about the accident and wanted to make it up to my son. They bonded over video games and talking about bikes. It's funny how kids can move past things so quickly. But the drama didn't end there. My husband's buddy, feeling embarrassed about the whole situation, decided to build a small ramp for the kids to safely practice on. He said it was the least he could do after his son wrecked the bike. My husband helped him out, and I think it was a good bonding experience for them too. They both learned a valuable lesson about responsibility and respecting other people's property. As for my son, he's been out there every day after school, practicing on his bike. He's getting pretty good at it, and I can see his confidence growing. He even started teaching the neighbor's kid how to ride properly, under close supervision, of course. It's been a ride of emotions, but I think we've all come out stronger as a family. My husband and I are communicating better, and he's been more attentive to our son's feelings. I've learned that sometimes it takes a crisis to bring people together, and that forgiveness can be a powerful thing. My ex-husband's prestigious family hides their scandal, but at a dinner party, my daughter reveals she's pregnant, and I expose his lies, leading to a shocking discovery about his new wife. I, 49-year-old female, had an ex-husband named Jake, 53 years old. We have 3 kids, Kyle, 18-year-old female, Carter, 21-year-old male, and Knox, 25-year-old male. When I was pregnant with Kyle, he was cheating on me with his assistant, Abigail. She was an 18-year-old freshman in college at the time. She got pregnant with Lizzie a year later. When I wouldn't take him back, we got a divorce, and he married her. He then had 2 more kids with her. He paid child support, but that was it, and only saw them once a month. However, if one of the kids asked him for something, he would agree to get it, but wouldn't answer the kids' phone calls until he figured I had gotten what they needed. He wouldn't show up to any of the kids' sports games or plays, but if his aunts and mom would go, then he would be there. His aunts and mom are big-time lawyers, and he needs their approval. His family is somewhat shallow. If someone isn't in a prestigious position, then they'll look down upon them, and any form of gossip is seen as negative, and they'll yell at you for making the family look bad. So in front of them, Jake would brag about everything he does for the kids when, in reality, he does nothing. However, my kids see their family vacations, and at first it hurt them, but they began to ignore it. He told them it was because I take them on 2 vacations every year, and Lizzie only gets 1. He just tells his family it was because the kids didn't want to go. However, during the Christmas party, Lizzie was talking to her great aunts about the upcoming trip to the Dominican Republic. Kyle then asked what they were talking about. She explained how the family was taking a trip and that their dad said they had other plans. Kyle explained how she had no plans and neither did her brothers, so they'd love to come. Here's where the problem starts. My kids, being that far away with their dad, never sat right with me, so I went with them on vacation. His wife wasn't happy, but me and his family are still close, so it wasn't weird. So at a dinner, my daughter and Carter go to a very prestigious college, and my oldest is in medical school. So his mom asked what's happening with all the kids. My daughter then explains how she was chosen for an internship for a tech company, and everyone congratulated her. His mom then asked about Lizzie. My daughter told me that Lizzie has been bragging about a secret, and everyone thinks that she got into her dream college. So his mom was smiling ear to ear, waiting to congratulate her. But Lizzie explains that she's pregnant. Everyone's face fell to the floor, including Jake's. Everyone began to question Jake and Abigail's parenting. Jake then said that it was all on Lizzie because his parenting was a result of my children's success. I was tired of the lies and explained how he was never there unless his family was there in order to look good in front of them. They then asked if that was true, and he tried to lie, saying of course not. Then Kyle chimed in, saying that he hadn't even invited them to this vacation and that he lies about everything and he's a shitty dad. Kyle stormed off, and me and my sons ran after her. Later, I got a text from Jake thanking me for ruining his family. I didn't text him back. I do feel bad because it probably wasn't the time or place. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. But Lizzie explains that she is pregnant. Bwahaha, oh my god, I just busted out laughing on the bus and now everyone is staring at me like I am crazy. Thanks for that laugh out loud. Not the jerk. Comment 2. I am going to be honest, you have been too nice to that man for far too long. I would have gone to his family over him all the time to get what they needed. Not the jerk. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. I never expected it to blow up like it did, but I guess you all were just as shocked by the drama as I was. Well, buckle up, because the past week has been a roller coaster. After the explosive dinner where my daughter Kyle called out her dad, Jake, for his lies, things have only gotten more intense. Jake's family, who always prided themselves on their impeccable image, has been in a frenzy trying to do damage control. But the real surprise dropped just 2 days after that dinner, and it's all anyone can talk about. It turns out that Jake's betrayal runs even deeper than we thought. Remember how Jake always needed his family's approval? Well, he wasn't just seeking their approval. He was also protecting a secret that could shatter their perfect world. Jake's assistant, Abigail, who he left me for all those years ago, wasn't just a fling. She was his half-sister. You see, Jake's father had an affair many years ago, and Abigail was the result. Only a handful of people knew, including Jake and his aunts. They kept it under wraps, fearing the scandal it would cause. But with the family already reeling from Lizzie's pregnancy news, one of Jake's aunts, in a fit of rage, let the secret slip to the rest of the family. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Jake's mom, who had no idea about the affair or Abigail's true parentage, was devastated. She had always held her marriage up as a shining example, and this revelation was a blow she wasn't prepared for. Jake's aunts were furious at him for bringing Abigail into the family and for the lies that had been piling up for years. As for my kids, they were shocked. Kyle, Carter, and Knox couldn't believe that their father had been hiding such a massive secret. They felt betrayed on a whole new level. It wasn't just about the vacations or the missed phone calls anymore. It was about the foundation of their family being built on lies. Jake tried to reach out to them to explain himself, but they weren't having any of it. Carter, who had always been the peacemaker, was the most vocal in his anger. He told Jake that he had lost any respect he might have had for him. Knox, usually the quiet one, simply turned his back on his father, unable to even look at him. And Lizzie, poor Lizzie, was caught in the middle of it all. She had idolized her father, and learning that her mother was also her aunt was too much for her to handle. She felt like her whole life was a lie. She confided in Kyle, who, despite everything, has been a rock for her. Kyle might have her own issues with Jake, but she couldn't stand to see her half-sister in pain. Amidst all this chaos, Jake's wife, Abigail, has been strangely silent. I always knew she was ambitious, but I never realized how deep her ambition ran. She had known about her parentage all along and had used it to secure her place in Jake's life. She had been the one to push Jake to maintain the facade of a perfect family, even if it meant neglecting his kids with me. But now, with everything out in the open, Abigail's position in the family is precarious. Jake's mom, who once adored her, now sees her as the embodiment of her husband's betrayal. The aunts, who had helped keep the secret, now view her as a reminder of their own complicity. As for me, I've been trying to keep my kids grounded through all this. We've had long talks about honesty and integrity, and I've reassured them that no matter what, we are a family, and we'll get through this together. It's been hard watching them grapple with the reality of their father's actions, but I'm proud of how they're handling it. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, Jake's mom reached out to me. She apologized for her son's behavior and thanked me for raising such wonderful children despite his shortcomings. It was a conversation I never expected to have, but it brought some much-needed closure to a relationship that had been strained for years. As for Jake, he's been trying to contact me, probably to apologize or explain his side of the story. But I haven't responded. After all these years of dealing with his lies and half-hearted parenting, I'm done. My focus is on my kids and helping them navigate the aftermath of their father's betrayal. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive, and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.